Loch Garten ospreys have twice been robbed of their eggs. On another occasion, someone actually tried to chop down their nesting tree. Even quite innocent disturbance may cause the birds to leave the nest long enough for chicks to suffer. Ours are probably old enough to shrug off a soaking, but the female sits tight until the storm abates. As soon as the rain has stopped, the male wastes no time in setting off to fish. He knows from his 10 years' experience that it may not be easy. In cold weather, the fish lie deeper. To reach them, he must plunge more steeply. A power dive that will take him right under if necessary. At the moment of splashdown, he's traveling at 70 feet a second. Scotland never has been a happy hunting ground for the osprey. Europe offers a choice of 28 prey species. Scotland, only 6 or 7. The fishing can be poor, but one thing is changing all that. Trout hatcheries are a bird's best friend, and not only for the gulls. It's no accident that the resurgence of the Scottish ospreys has coincided with the restocking of lochs for trout fishing tourists, and the hatcheries are an additional bonus for any fish-eating bird. So ospreys are bad news for hatchery managers. Though their numbers are few, they are in direct competition with man, and shooting ospreys is against the law. So what should be done? Perhaps the simple answer is to cover the fish. That way, the temptation for wildlife to regard every hatchery as a free meal ticket would be removed, and a cause of conflict resolved. Open to the sky, they are an irresistible target. Rainbow trout have a much higher nutritional value than any other prey in Scotland. Without them, there would be fewer ospreys. So if a trout like this is worth £1 in cash, what price an osprey? Flying free. How do you cost account the wealth of a nation's wildlife? The young are now full grown. It is 8 weeks since they hatched, and they're fully feathered. They are even old enough to feed themselves, but pickings are lean, and they fill in with leftovers between meals. With ospreys, little is wasted. At this stage, the male actually tries to reduce the supply of fish to the nest to encourage the young to fly. But some feeding must continue. The female still feeds her offspring, even though they are nearly as big as she is. So in spite of the male's desire to diminish his catch, he must keep up his relentless foraging to provide 4 or 5 fish a day. Mid-August, and the young birds watch with great interest as the male tries to coax them into the air. By now, he must have brought over 200 fish to the nest, but he is still reluctant to part with them. The young are ready to fly and have been ringed to tell us more about their problems of survival on migration. And there are all kinds of perils lying in wait. Of the 12,000 ospreys in Europe, a quarter will perish on the hazardous journey south. Every autumn, in Italy alone, 1,000 are shot. Even before they can fly, they are in danger. If a sudden gust should catch them off balance, they could be blown to the ground and devoured by foxes. It's a tense moment, but finally, he's free. Independent of the nest at last, but carrying a scrap of fish with him, just in case. For a first flight, it's quite impressive, but landing still requires a bit of practice, especially with only 1 foot. The young can fend for themselves now. Autumn has come, and already the female has begun the long journey south. Soon, guided only by instinct, each youngster will follow, charting the great unknown continents alone. But only one will survive to see the empty nest again. As the wild geese return from the Arctic to yelp a warning of winter's coming, the last of the young ospreys leaves the eyrie which has been its world for the past 3 months, to pursue its parents down the great, immemorial skyways to the sun, a 3,000-mile flight to Africa. This is the Gambia, West Africa, end of the line for some of the migrating ospreys and a far cry from the highlands. Here, day begins with dawn patrols of egrets setting out over the palm trees to their fishing grounds. West Africa is a paradise for fish-eating birds, though it has its own sinister hazards. Ospreys may not be a regular part of the crocodile's diet, but these vervet monkeys will certainly be in danger if they go down to the water's edge to drink. After the 2-month journey from Scotland, the ospreys quickly adapt to their new tropical home. They arrive in late October. It's the dry season, and the adult ospreys will rest here all winter, the youngsters even longer. They will share the malachite kingfisher's haunts until they are 2 years old, finding easy fishing in the pools between the baobab trees. For the fish eaters, living is easy. There is food for all in the mangrove creeks, and tinier titbits for the common sandpiper, which also breeds in Scotland, but is as much at home with the fiddler crabs. They wait below the master's table, hoping for a scrap or two, scavenged from the Osprey's meal. Ospreys have been known to eat crabs, the sandpiper also when he can, but mullet is a more satisfying feast. An adult osprey needs only 1 fish a day, but nothing is wasted. Every scrap of fish is consumed and converted into the energy required to fuel that formidable frame. There will be little left for the crabs, waiting below. This, then, is the mysterious world of the mangroves, a habitat of vital importance to the ospreys. And like wilderness everywhere, it's under pressure. In many parts of Africa, large tracts of mangrove swamp have been cleared for agriculture, understandable in developing countries where hunger is an ever-present nightmare. What is far more disturbing is the highly questionable practice of sowing the seeds of silent spring in the Third World by selling pesticides banned in Europe. Happily, some of West Africa's most important mangrove swamps are now protected, for the benefit of man and wildlife together. So here, at least, the mangroves still tiptoe down the brackish channels, and when the tide trickles in through the tangled stems, the osprey retires to a favorite stump in the center of his territory. But sometimes he encounters a little local competition. A haul of mullet, highly esteemed by the Gambians as a fish with a high nutritional value, second only to the flying fish, the osprey's favorite prey. So the osprey catches mullet in the mangroves at high water, flying fish at sea when the tide is out. This is where the osprey does most of his fishing during the winter vacation, on a coast fit for Crusoe, with only the clockwork sanderling for company. Flying fish abound in these warm Atlantic waters, and the clarity of the tropical sea makes them easy to catch as they bask or feed on plankton just below the surface. As usual, the local hoodlum is hanging around, the pied crow, which takes over from the Scottish hoodie or carrion crow as the villain who tries to bushwhack the osprey and rob him of his catch. Nobody loves the crow, but the osprey is greatly admired by the local fishermen. So much so that they use them as pointers to locate the shoals of fish and wear the remains of an osprey's catch as a good luck charm. Competition from the local fishermen is minimal, but just over the horizon looms a much more serious threat. Russian trawlers, using vacuum cleaner methods, ruthlessly mopping up the offshore fisheries. And that could soon put pressure on the inshore fishermen to increase exploitation of the waters where the ospreys feed. For the time being, life on the Sunshine Coast remains unchanged. But wholesale plundering of precious local resources could bring catastrophe, and a time when Gambians and ospreys have no fish to catch. Meanwhile, Africa continues to offer an idyllic existence in the sun. It's still a mystery why the ospreys leave at all. They should remain to breed. Instead, they forsake the gentle Gambia for a month-long odyssey many will not live to complete. Why they leave to face the rigors of the north can only be guessed at, and the Scottish spring is not always welcoming. But in spite of the blizzards and the perils of the journey, it's Scotland's good fortune that the ospreys still answer to ancient instincts. It's almost as if, like the wild Highland stag, they are drawn to places which are akin to their own fierce spirit. So the world of the osprey comes full circle. The old eyrie, wrecked by winter storms, must be repaired in readiness for a new family. It is a story as old as time, but this tale has a ring of hope. Globally, the osprey is doing well, and in Scotland, though its numbers are low, it is protected and increasing. In today's world, precious few creatures get a second chance and succeed, but the osprey is a born survivor. So often we are driving nature out, but given goodwill and understanding, how willingly, how joyfully it responds and enriches.